Well, hello, lovely to meet you.
Hi, it's awesome to meet you. I was just about to say, long time no
Oh
see.
my gosh, I know. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So we are recording now.
Yay.
Thank you so much. Okay. I'm first of all, I'm sorry.
No, no,
Anyway.
it's so okay. Honestly, that made it even more fun because now I know you as more than an interviewer.
Exactly. There we
We were
go.
just having a dope
We just
conversation.
hung out. We were on FaceTime and it was awesome.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
No, I had a lot of fun. Thank you. Like genuinely. Okay. Um, why don't you tell everyone about yourself?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah, for sure. I'm LJ, LJ Falugan. I'm in my final year of anthropology program at the University of Manitoba, based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Yeah, right now I'm mostly focusing on stuff at the university. I've got a research award working with a professor right now with regards to rematriation and making sure that our academy is taking accountability for the ways that it's harmed people in the past. So
There you
I
go.
think
Yep.
that's nice. I
Yeah.
think that'll be good work to look at over the summer. But otherwise, yeah, I'm mostly just chilling right now, and I'm chilling most of the time. So
Most
that's
of
a
the time.
solid
Yeah.
introduction.
That's awesome. Do you want to talk about so I'm gonna repeat myself a bit. I'm sorry. So
It's so okay.
you wrote for Petal Projections a piece that is long form fiction, which was awesome, and we don't get a lot of those, so it was awesome to see that you wrote a piece like that and also wrote it so well and so wonderfully, and our editorial board loved it very, very much. Many high praises. So
Thank you so much.
absolutely. So do you want to talk to us about what inspired that piece?
Well, yeah, for sure. London-Donnie Air is it's a fictional short story based on my time in LA. Or the story itself isn't based on the time I spent in LA, but the setting definitely is, just because of how much of a contrast it is from where I'm based in the prairies to LA, not the prairies, which is I didn't realize it was going to be as drastic of a difference, and also the nature of that difference. I
Right.
guess LA is so publicized, and like you hear it in like songs and movies and La La Land and Ryan Gosling, and
Oh yeah.
it's like I was looking so forward to LA, and then when I got there I was like, oh, this is just a city. This is
Hmm.
just a city. So I think I was the story itself started by me channeling that angst into a short story, especially about how LA was in terms of climate. Oh my gosh, it was so hot and the air was so stale and it was
Right.
so I don't even want to call it hot. It was just like bad.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, no hate to LA, the
Yeah.
city, or people from LA, but the weather was not great. And I felt really suffocated by it,
Mhm.
I think, especially the air, considering Winnipeg's in the prairies. And
Right.
for the most part, we've got pretty decent smelling air, aside from like when it doesn't smell like manure. Uh, so I guess that idea of like moving from one place into another with that is a lot more restricted than from where you've been. That's
Yeah.
something that definitely informed the work. Um, and yeah, like I said, or well, like I said in unrecorded interview, the topics that Petal Project tries to negotiate and talk to aren't things that I feel like I'm very familiar with. So it was a challenge to try to write something in this case. And when I tried to focus on something that was specific to me that I felt like I could write on with regards to the sort of advocacy and activism that Petal Projections is based on, it was very much the interpretation of that difference.
Hmm.
I think there's a there's a lot of mean exposition, like rude exposition to LA, I guess, or just like a city like that in general. Like the heavy pollutant comforter is how I describe just being there.
Right.
And the title itself is London-Donnie Air, which is that's just kind of a pun on London-Derry Air, which is the original hymn of the song Oh Danny Boy. And I thought Oh Danny Boy was very American, but then I realized it was like an Irish song. So then I was like, frick, how do I make Oh Danny Boy more American? And then I found a jazz cover of Oh Danny Boy by this guy called Donnie, and it was called London-Donnie Air compared to London-Derry Air. And I was like, you know what? I've researched down the rabbit hole enough. If it fits with my monologue at the beginning, I'll be cool.
That's awesome. That's the titling is such an interesting thing, and like that's a very creative way about of going about your titles.
I feel like I sometimes spend more time trying to think of a title,
Mm.
especially with shorter works. I've been told that like I write titles like Fall Out Boy lyrics or
That's
Fall Out
awesome.
Boy song
Yeah.
titles. And I'm like, you know what? That's a pretty solid way of describing
I
it.
love that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, I also I'm so excited to tell one of our editors, the one who looked at your piece actually. He's moving from Toronto to LA in like 2 months. So I'm so excited to
Oh,
give him this lore because he was like, I'm so drawn to this piece.
well, I'm a good luck with the move, but
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Oh. Um, so does writing something like this about do you want to talk about maybe what the piece is about in terms of the relationship and the dynamics that are shown in it?
for sure. A lot of the story occurs between like an unnamed protagonist and they're kind of like just faceless friend, mentor, supervisor Ariel. And a lot of their conversation is just bantering, except that we kind of get to look into the introspection of the protagonist that goes into their bantering.
Right.
Uh, and yeah, that friendship dynamic is definitely something that I felt like I needed to focus on because otherwise I'll just have a protagonist who talks to themselves or a ton of other random characters who mean nothing just so that one character can talk. So I did challenge myself, I think, by trying to be like, hey, try not to be too pretentious with your dialogue this time around. Like I tried to just write it like how I remember chatting with my friends. And yeah, ultimately that friendship dynamic is something that I've experienced.
But such a like specific friendship dynamic of like this mentor-ish figure, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's it's difficult because I didn't want to idealize Ariel at all. Like,
Mhm.
I think that's why I opened with describing them like they smelled like like pets' paws.
Right.
Which is kind of strange, but
I
it's
love
because I
that.
have a
Yeah.
pet and I love the smell of my pet's paws. But
Hmm.
and like even Ariel's just kind of like another allusion to just how of an every person they're supposed to be. And since it's this faceless every person and then a protagonist whose introspection we get I almost see it as like a model for a lot of friendships now where you're unsure of whether you are actually friends or not. I feel like it's easy to be like, oh yeah,
Right.
this is my friend so and so and this is my friend so and so, but I think in being able to say that we have like a definition of friendship inside of ourselves that
Mhm.
might not necessarily match up with other people's. So I
Yeah.
guess when friends happen, I guess it's a lot more special than it appears at first, you
Yeah.
know? Like when you're in school, it's just like, oh yeah, go chat with your seatmate or go play with some people at recess. It's always like relationships of proximity, you know? And I think relationships of proximity are okay. I've made really awesome friends that way. But
Mhm.
ultimately, it's like you have a way of describing friendship and what a friend is to you, and I have one too. And we might disagree in some points.
Mhm.
However, we're still friends, you know? So
Mhm.
where we disagree is going to lead to some like situations, but at the end of the day, it's because we view each other as friends. It's,
Definitely.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. It's difficult, I think, for sure. Not, well, I don't want to say it's naturally a difficult thing, but so being able to interact with other people varies between person to person. And for me, I have a really hard time just reading how other people think of things.
Hmm.
Like, do they have a positive opinion of this? Do they have a negative opinion of this? And then when it gets really bad, it's like, oh man, do they think I'm a friend of theirs? Or like, have I just been around?
Right.
So I
Like,
think that line of introspection definitely plays a role.
yeah, I completely like I completely resonate with exactly what you're saying. And the whole like definition of friendship concept is so interesting because there's also just like so many different types of friends to make in your life. And the other day I saw my like friend that I've had since I was 4 years old because we were in preschool together and went through all
Oh,
the schooling together. And it's like
nice.
we see each other maybe once every year now or once every 2 years.
Hmm.
And but like she's still my friend even though we don't talk all the time. And it's very interesting to like either like there's people that you are a part of their creation in terms of becoming a person, and then there's people that you're thrown into a scenario with, and
Hmm.
there's so many different types of circumstances that form a friend. There's so many things that like um you have to like I also get into the mental patterns of just like thinking of like, well, do you think of me as your friend? Are we friends? Like
Yeah.
what do you I know who your best friends are, and sometimes I think that you're my best friend, but then you da, da, da. And it's
Don't
such
seem
a
like
weird
my
way of
best friend. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's such
It's
a weird
navel
way to think
gazing,
about it.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's scary when you're not sure whether another person's your friend or not.
Hmm.
And depending on how like you interact with people, that can sometimes lead to like not the best situations. Like I'm definitely, just full disclosure, I'm somebody who's not 100% confident in how people view me at all sometimes. So I always try to like be a friend, but being a friend is only based on the definition of what I think to be a friend.
Hmm.
And sometimes the way that I'm trying to be a friend might not be what one of my friends needs, you know? And
Right.
vice versa too. And something you said about how like we're part of these people's creation, right? Since we're their friends, it's like we're part of their definition of friendship too.
Hmm.
I think those kinds of, like you said, patterns and just like ruminations are like, I feel like they take up a lot of space in people's heads nowadays.
Yeah,
Just social media and returning to being around people in general.
absolutely. Yeah. I think this is a like weird question, but what are your thoughts on the ways that like social media and like constant access to the people around you has changed like everything?
Uh, Unrestrained access to the internet has been the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I can
Yeah.
only thank it. No, I was definitely a child of the internet. I was
Yeah.
born in 2002. And oh, when I was younger, I used to love to throw the curveball of like I was born after 9/11 at people.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they'd always be like, "Oh, I know exactly where I was on that day." And I
Yeah.
was like, "I was not even born."
No, same. Like
But
my mom was
no, go for
pregnant
it.
with me during 9/11. We're the O2 babies. Yeah.
Exactly, same
Yeah.
here. So, and now it's like, okay, let's look at the things that happened in our lives now that a lot of us are entering the adult world, or what
Mhm.
people might consider the adult world. And I think because of that big break from reality that happened to happen in 2020, it's like, I think the biggest thing it did for me personally was raise the awareness that the adult world was not really an adult world.
Right.
Um, I guess it it's so hard to think about that difference and that switch, I guess,
Hmm.
how those things change. But I I I'm I kind of feel like that's not really about the perfect answer to your question yet. So like, do you think you can elaborate on that?
Um, maybe just like, have you seen any like in terms of what you study and every all of the I think you have a very obvious appreciation for introspection and like humanity.
Mhm.
Um, so I think just in terms of maybe from that lens, what do you think that does to a person in terms of identity?
Uh, I don't want to say that all the things that formed my identity were negative things, but I think they're all such nuanced facets that like
Mhm.
they led to some really fun things about me. Like, hey, I like to write and I like to like draw, and like I think my interests are pretty neat. But also now I have like this idea of interacting with people that's like, hey, why did you not talk to me 5 minutes ago?
Oh
Or
yeah.
like, I have full access to seeing what you do in your life.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's really bad when like you're not necessarily interacting with a person in real life as much as you are online.
Mhm.
Uh, over COVID, I was so chronically online too. I think
Oh
like
yeah.
who had
Yeah.
who wasn't,
It
you
was the
know?
only way to be if you weren't like being a complete hermit.
And
Yeah,
then I realized like those online friendships were virtual, but also like just as real as the ones I formed in
exactly.
real
Yeah.
life. And I mean, like from the anthropological perspective's a curse. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've chatted with it. I've chatted about it with my professors, even like in my department, because I like this year, I started bringing up the question of like, hey, so I've been taught to like critically situate myself and like reflect as a human how I'm interacting with other humans. Is there a way to do that that doesn't destroy my soul? And they were like, no, not really. They were
Whoa.
like, you kind of can't turn that off once you start. You're always anthropologizing. And I was like, cool, that would have been great to know before I
Yeah.
devoted 4 years to it.
Oh my
But
God.
that anthropological perspective can be a personal one,
Hmm.
I hope. Anthropological is just like the human sciences, but like, can we study humans? That sounds unethical. Can we understand humans? Maybe, who knows? I don't know. And
Hmm.
I'm an anthropologist, so I think me saying that has a bit of weight to it.
Yeah.
But when the perspectives that you have been built on, that you have lived in, and that you create in, uh, are so intrinsically complicit in harm and violence,
Hmm.
it introspection kind of automatically becomes painful.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be nice, you know, like I was in an English course recently and they were talking about how like, oh yes, retirement poetry, like they'd go over to the countryside and talk about oh being away from the world and all that. And I was like, those are rich people who
Hmm.
had the money to do that. I don't have the money to do that.
Yeah.
I'm like nonstop engaged. I can't like pull back from my own world, you know?
Right.
I think that's where anthropology hurts because it definitely hurts.
Hmm.
And it's not necessarily something that I want to say has to hurt. I
Right.
want to be able to I want to be able to become a fuller human without it being a solely painful experience.
Right. Um, in your piece, you talked about like a lot of these like feelings of maybe loneliness and like maybe just like this day by day routine that wasn't intrinsically satisfying for the protagonist. Is there anything first of all, I think the moment in your piece where you have that like validation of the friendship and have that connection is so powerful because there's somebody in it with this person. There's somebody who's like sees, and sometimes being seen is just enough in those moments. Does writing or creating or even like studying do anything like that for you personally? Just in terms of connection and being
That's
seen.
wow, that's a crazy question. Or
Sorry,
well, not a
that was a
crazy
lot.
question. That's a deep one. That's a thinker. Like I do think of myself as a writer, so I try to be around a lot of other creatives. I find a lot of my friends are also like writers, they're like painters, or just illustrators, creators in their own right. So I think writing has influenced me to form connection in that way. But when I think of writing and studying and working, I
Mhm.
only see myself alone in those words.
Mm,
I think I can like maybe articulate loneliness in those ways and like understand it better, but I don't think I can resolve it.
mhm.
Like I said, anthropology kind of sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it kind of sucks by default, so you kind of have to do extra to make it not suck.
Mhm.
And one way you do that is to apply anthropology to the life that you live in and think, how are the things I'm doing harmful and what can I do to be helpful?
Yeah.
I having an eye that shows you where all the problems are doesn't need to be a shitty thing. I think a
Right.
lot of people have, oh man, especially like with, like you said, unrestrained access to the internet beyond social relationships of knowledge. I read Wikipedia for fun, and that
Oh, I
started in middle
love that.
school.
Yeah.
That started in like middle school, high school. I was just like going through Wikipedia or whatever website I could find,
Hmm.
and unrestrained access to whatever website you find will ultimately lead to ruin.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be the person I am without it, you know? And
Yeah.
like, yeah, I was chronically online, but like I said, the friendships I made with those online people were just as real as the people in my supposedly real life, which was absent kind of with COVID.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that it's a I said this earlier, but just to reiterate, it's like a really good you obviously have a great appreciation for the things that you that inspire you if you're doing it in so many different ways and just like looking into so many different things and writing about it and having this passion, and that's really admirable. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have like had the opportunity to work with Petal Projections, honestly. Like I think this is applied work right now. I think like you are working with other people and forming connections that are vital. I think absolutely vital in this day and age, this kind of like solidarity between young creatives and like being able to work together to try to figure out a voice that we want to speak with together. I think is especially important when like we've been coming back to COVID a lot, but yeah, like coming out of
Mhm.
COVID, it's so difficult to navigate that world, especially when the time you were supposed to have spent learning how to navigate that world was like in a single room.
Absolutely. Yeah. We
Thank
said this
you.
earlier, but strange factory. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But yes, COVID made a strange factory of all of us, of
That's strange
young
factory.
adults to adults.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Oh
even
man, factory farm almost.
I keep almost like I referred to myself as a teenager the other day and I was like, oh.
I said I was 20 by accident and I was like,
Yeah.
wait, sorry, no, I'm 21.
Yeah.
I'm starting to lose count and that should not be the time for it.
No, exactly. Like it's too early for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, So just quickly, I just want to touch on your piece and maybe like the concept of self-insertion that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Oh man, unnamed protagonist. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this will make it so that readers can like empathize, but also like I think it's so that I can put myself there more easily too.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, I think there's the idea of like death of an author, right? But like for things to get written, I kind of have to write it.
Right.
So, and if I'm the one writing it, it's definitely gonna look like something I wrote, I hope. Uh,
Which is
to that
magical. Yeah.
Yeah, it is magic. To that end,
Mhm.
it's like I can't remove myself from this. Like I'll try to like remove as much identif like as many details of
Yeah.
identification from the story as possible. And I do think it is a general enough kind of like dynamic of friendship or experience that a lot of people can empathize. But oh man, we talked about it a little bit earlier in a secret interview, the
Oh yeah.
unrecorded, about how like self-insertion sometimes feels like hard or it
Mhm.
wrong to do. And I think yeah, having the idea of like death of an author breathing down your neck constantly, it's like you are almost being taught to hide yourself in the
Mhm.
art you make. But it's more so like I'm making it out of me, you know? Like the
Exactly.
medium
Yeah.
is me itself. This wouldn't have happened without me. And I feel like that's kind of egocentric, but
No,
I
I
do
love
think,
that. It's
yeah, thank you.
yeah.
I think it's something that you need to consider, especially, I brought it up as well, but in Canada too, when so much of what we do is based on settler colonial violence,
Mhm.
sometimes just doing things is harm if you're not doing the things you need to do to take into account how you do harm.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
but with self-insertion, it's less of a, well, I hope it's less of a selfishness thing, and it's more so me being overly self-conscious thing
Mm.
of how I'm writing something and trusting almost. Oh man, trust is a maybe that might not be the right word to use, but trusting that I have something to say.
Right. I mean, I think trusting it's a I I think that like retroactively cringing at something is a really hard to do, and like taking away the shame in cringe and also doing that based on trusting yourself and trusting the work that you make and trusting that there are people around you that want to see it even if that's a relevance for somebody.
Hmm.
Um, it's a really interesting thing. And I really respect that you have the amount of introspection that it takes to like have all of these thoughts, but also like I really hope that you know like how powerful the work that you make is. And
Thank you.
it's really nice to meet people like yourself who just like I know are going to be so successful in what they do. And just like again meeting the contemporaries of um just like everybody that's upcoming and following their future projects and everything is just so much fun for myself. And so seeing those human moments and seeing that like self-insertion in pieces is I I don't know, I love humans, I love people. So
Me too.
it's great to exactly. So it's great to see everything that you said using yourself as the medium and I like took that immediately and like quotation marks in my head.
Let me put that in the cabinet.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad. I think sometimes uh, I think it's sometimes scary when people try to make things without thinking about who they are.
Hmm.
That has led to a lot of bad things,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
So hearing that, thank you so much. And like I said earlier, like I think you providing that opportunity is equally as important. And on, like I said, and when you asked me whether like studying, writing, reading, whether those things alleviate or like resolve my loneliness, no, not really, but these things do, you know? It's
Mhm.
like it might not be the direct product of that process, but this is part of the process. The human experience is. And I don't think I would have gotten that if I hadn't trusted in myself to write something and been like, okay, you're a human too, and that's cringe and that's edgy, but suck it, you know?
Yeah, by Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
No,
Sometimes
but thank you
you
so
just
much.
gotta have it like a Patrick Stump in your head telling you to
Exactly.
telling you to trust yourself.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, and for all of your kind words. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Um, are there any upcoming projects that you want to talk about? Or again, we talked about this earlier, but nothing official, but anything you're working on?
Yeah, well, like I said, right now I'm spending the summer doing the respectful repatriation and rematriation ceremony at the U of M,
Mhm.
which is a way for the Department of Anthropology at my university and also just the university as a whole to recognize how the of Anthropology and the discipline itself has harmed indigenous groups, especially with regards to ancestral remains and cultural heritage items, and how they
Mhm.
were like how they have been unjustly and wrongly taken away from them. So the rematriation ceremony is, to that effect, a way of trying to move forward in a good way that considers the voices of everyone who should have been involved. And
Mhm.
also thinking about how, you know, just we think of culture and preservation in the first place. On June 3rd, the University of Manitoba is actually going to be doing a public apology from the president to Indigenous communities that may have or, you know, have been implicitly or explicitly harmed by the actions of the university, which I think is, you know, if you're in an academy, that kind of work is stuff that you should be fighting for or that you should be looking to see because I really don't like the thought of, you know, being uh, a person who came from a marginalized group and then entering a privileged space only to not think about that.
Right.
You know, that would be too important to not think about, I think.
Right. That's amazing that you're being a part of like such powerful steps. Um, that's really impressive. Thank you.
Thanks. I also don't want to make it seem like as grandiose as it might sound. Honestly,
Yeah.
uh, a big part of it is going to be like a workshop
Mhm.
programming type craft event that we're going to be holding in different spaces in the North End with youth there, and with the help from an art programmer who's also helping out with the project, and then also hopefully at the university itself to get the people who actually attend that school thinking about why and where they're attending.
Right.
It's good stuff to think about, I think.
Right. Absolutely. Um, and is there anywhere that any viewers can find your work or like take a look at anything you've written or anything you want to be shown?
For sure. Right now, I'm working on getting something to set up to have a public page to view the stuff I've written so far. But for now, you can follow me on Instagram at I'm full, IMMFUL, so double M, one less L.
Awesome.
And
Perfect.
thank you so
Um,
much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you chatting with me twice,
That
and
was
for
fun.
everything.
Honestly, it
I
means I
honestly
got to
had so
talk
much
to you
fun.
twice as long.
Awesome. I feel the exact same way. I had so much fun.
Me too.
Thank you, genuinely. I really
I'll be
appreciate
looking for you on Instagram. And best of luck with
Absolutely.
the launch
Oh
event.
my
I'm so
gosh, thank
sorry I
you so
can't be
much.
there.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for everything. Like, I had such a good time chatting.